Our runaway inflation and interest rates as high as 20% poised to return to Canada. Back in the late 1970s and early 80s, double-digit inflation and sky-high interest rates had become the new normal, a horrific combination that together produced a deep recession, crippling unemployment, and even the creation of a new economic term, stagflation. And now some economists are growing worried this may happen in Canada all over again, and that might seem far-fetched or even bizarre. We are, after all, already in a deep recession, and prices in some cases are actually dropping. Not to mention interest rates continue to remain at all-time lows. So why should we worry? Shouldn't our top concern simply be to stimulate growth and get people working again? But here's why inflation could return, and with it, significant economic hardship for all Canadians. Over the past few months, government spending in this country, ostensibly due to COVID-19, has exploded, with the projected federal deficit climbing over 1,000% from $28 billion to $343 billion, in effect increasing Canada's total debt accumulated since 1867 by 40% in just 1 year. And that in itself is very concerning. That money, after all, will have to be paid back down the road. But what is even more concerning lies in just where all that money's coming from. In order to raise such a massive amount of cash in such a short period of time while keeping interest costs down, the government has been forced to rely on the Bank of Canada to lend them billions of dollars each week. But where does the Bank of Canada get all this money? Well, they print it. Not literally, of course, this is the 21st century after all, but they do create it digitally from what is in effect thin air. And then they use that money to buy government bonds. And because the central bank is basically an arm of the federal government, even if it is autonomous, the government is basically printing money and lending it to itself. Now, anyone with any common sense can see how this is not a sustainable situation. You can't print money in perpetuity and use it to fund whatever government programs or fulfill whatever campaign promises that you see fit without consequence. Something's got to give. And the most common consequence of such policies, if you look back through history, is inflation, namely the devaluing of one's currency and a corresponding rise in prices in that country. And to devastating effect. It literally destroys economies, governments, even societies. And it's incredibly hard on the everyday person as well, because in just a short period of time, the real value of one's wages and savings decrease dramatically. For example, in 1981, inflation in Canada, in this country, was 12.5%, meaning if you made $100 at the start of the year and held on to it, by the end of that year, it would have lost over 12% of its value. In just 12 months, that same $100 would now be worth less than $88. And inflation also causes those lending money for, say, a mortgage to demand higher and higher interest rates as a result. And in some countries, this vicious cycle spirals completely out of control. During the 2000s, in Zimbabwe, hyperinflation reached over 1 billion%. At one point, 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollars was actually only worth 40 cents US. And back in the 1920s, in Germany, they went through something similar when the prices for basic goods doubled every 4 days, wiping out the savings of millions of people as well as businesses, and forcing individuals to pay for their groceries, and this is true, with baskets or even wheelbarrows full of money. And it's actually happening again today in the country of Venezuela, where the annual inflation rate is now nearly 10,000%, and imports of critical goods like medication have completely ground to a halt. So, is this what the future has in store for Canada? Well, if we continue our current trajectory, eventually, yes. This level of spending and debt can't go on forever. Now, hopefully this current crisis will pass and our government and politicians will sort this mess out. But part of the problem is this country was already heavily indebted and running massive deficits before this pandemic even happened, continually spending money beyond our means while simply leaving the next generation with the bill. All the while, our leaders seemingly content with just buying enough votes to win the next election. That is no way to run a country like Canada, no way to lead a government, and no way to build a brighter and stronger future. For the C2C Journal, my name is Aaron Gunn. Thanks for watching.